In this video, we are going to bring up the Italian Carcano 9124. This is the little short rifle or carbine that was converted from long rifles after World War I. Now, in doing all my research and work on these rifles, we got into a big discussion and never came to a conclusion or whatever on how they were shortened. Now, first problem that I had is I did pick up a 9124 prior to all those rifles being imported from Italy. And when I got the gun, I looked down the bore. You know, there's rifling. It was kind of dark, but there was no pitting, no rust, no nothing. But when I fired this gun, and I did not inspect the gun or measure the bore, at 50 yards it fired bullets like a shotgun. They're all over the place. So, internet lore, and without doing any research, they said that they just cut off the barrels, shortened them, which with the game twist rifling screwed them up. So I always assumed that this gun was just one that was cut off and worthless. Well, you know, that's when I would pick one up casually and just set it aside. And when I started getting into where I built a collection of all the different models, started taking measurements, I even got a set of headspace gauges for the Carcano, because I had so many guns, and I started checking everything out. Come to find out, this 24 had, the rifling was just worn out. If I put, and I demonstrated that, the videos are up there, if I put an oversized cast bullet in there and fired it, it would correct and be a little bit closer. So that was the long and short of it. And then when all the imports come in, I finally got that one there, which is a very nice example in really good shape. So the question is, we start discussing on how they were shortened. Okay, now I've also spent an awful lot of money buying reference books. This one here, written by people from Italy, and then another one here, which was kind of a limited edition, this book, which I got, that is basically done up by a group of collectors, and it is a very informative book. Okay, so when we go to the chapter of the 9124, it does describe where the Italians tried to put a tubular, the Salerno thing, bore out the guns and press the sleeve in. Well, that was too costly. Then, okay, and so supposedly the barrels were cut down, okay, and just used. And how it's described in the books and where it gets confusing is this book here. I just reread it. He says that they were amputated. That's all he says, amputated, cut, taken, shortened, and the little stamp and oval, he said they removed the barrel, cut back one turn on the thread and the collar up on the barrel, re-screwed it into the receiver, and recut the chamber, which is a way to repair a bad chamber in your barrel. It's a standard thing. And that's it. That's all he says. In the other book, and it shows pictures, and I basically showed you the same thing in here. This one states that the barrel is cut down, then it is turned, okay? And supposedly they cut it short and turn the barrel down so you can get a bayonet on, because if you look at a long barrel of a 91, it is kind of tapered and a bigger diameter. So it shows where, and the way he describes this is this barrel is turned with a step for the bayonet, and then the barrel length is turned straight and comes to an area in the corner. So from his description and how he words it, it looks like they just cut it off, turn a step for the front sight to come back on, and turn the barrel, thin it out to a point by the rear sight. Okay, so we get into the argument. So I said maybe the one I had was just cut off and worn out, and that's why I did this. But I got this one was cut off and shortened, and got a better bore. Well, then a couple people, one of them the gun geek, says, well, look, I got a sporterized Cooey Carcano, and he said what they've done is they cut the barrel and shortened it, then put it back together again. And the way he described it, he goes, they would cut it and put it back together. And he didn't give any details or what process or anything. And when I'm looking at these things, alright, the reason I have issues and couldn't understand it is this section here of the barrel is still the original one, and this one's actually dated 1897. Okay, and it was converted in 28. And when I take these apart, I don't understand in the way they describe it. I don't know how they're doing it. And what's also confusing is when that guy says with that little stamp means that the barrel was rechambered. Okay, so that's erroneous in a way, or it's not worded correctly. Okay, the way he's talking is like the barrel was pulled off, shortened on this end, and rechambered. What you would do with a worn out barrel, like the throat's worn, that would kind of get you a little bit more life out of the barrel. None of these people, I believe, is a machinist or a gunsmith, and they don't really describe it in terms. And in all of this reference books, all of this reference material, I have never seen any type of a diagram or explanation in the process on how these barrels were shortened and done. Okay? I've heard some people, like I said, the gun geek insists that they were cut and put back together. Okay, which I kind of didn't quite understand. He didn't express it in detail concisely how it was done. And several other people have argued, yeah, they were cut and then somehow magically assembled. So this went on, we got in an argument, and I said, well, where's, documentation? Where's, give me a reference or a diagram or something that I can find. And see, they can't right offhand. So it gets muddled. So what I was doing, bored, I was typing in some stuff, and I found a new website. And we're going to go over here and look at it, and we're going to see something, and then we're going to go prove it. Okay, and I just found this by, cruising around. www.carcanorifle.com. Okay, I just found this the other day. Yes, I will put a link for all of you that are challenged and need to have a link, because if you hear me verbally say www.carcanorifle.com, you don't want to go through the process of actually typing that into a search box, do you? Alright, so we have a Carcano guide. You got serial number charts, production, factories, accessories. Actually a pretty nice assortment. I have not gone through this yet, but it's got its own little departments and a lot of familiar names in here. Special thanks to that, all these people that have helped this individual put together this website. So, let's go Carcano Guide. M91. M9124. And it gives you basically all the standard information on these rifles. Okay, and explains the history, abuse, this and that, blah, blah, worn out guns. Okay, and then the different things about sling swivels and models. And it says how were they converted. And it says first method. This first method is an absolute rare find. I'm reporting it since it is written on reference books, but mostly to any converted model following the second method. Okay, and it says the first method was to simply shorten the barrel by cutting off the front portion. The Army technicians knew that cutting the gain twist long barrel wasn't good to stabilize the bullet to the correct rotation, causing terrible precision. They also re-sleeved the barrels with the Salerno method. It is estimated less than 200 were converted in this way, and it was considered too expensive and a labor-intensive thing. So as you see in this first method is what this gentleman describes. It shows you the length of the rifle. It shows that it's cut off and it's shortened, and then it must be turned for the front sight, but it's only turned here. Okay? And the other alternative was to put a sleeve in there, where you see that tubo, or tuba, whatever. So his description is describing this. Okay? Second method, cut and graft. The second method, most widespread and definitive method, consists of removing the barrel, cutting the middle, drilling the rear bulkier part out in order to host the front part, force sleeve them together, then drilling a new chamber in the barrel. With these methods, all wooden parts and metal furnitures could be recycled with minimal changes to the original template. So now, here we have an example of what the gun geek and everybody, I'll zoom in on that for you, has been talking about. Alright, as we see, let me adjust that. Okay, there we go. Now, the really nice thing about this is there are dimensions. There are dimensions written here so we can take the gun apart and measure the barrel. What was done is you got your 141 millimeters here. A cut was made at your rear sight base. There's your hex barrel end and your threaded area. And they cut out this section, leaving a 451 millimeter section with the front sight. Now, here you have this section cut off, the barrel section cut off. You bore out the rear section to 14.7 millimeters. Okay? Then this barrel section, the rear end here is machined to 14.7 millimeters, 141 millimeters long, which is the length of this here. And it should be about a thousandths press fit. So now you have your shoulder. Now you press the two parts together. So you're retaining the old section of the barrel and the threads and all that other fun stuff. You got your sight base already mounted onto the barrel section. And you press it in till it's flush. Then, like a barrel blank, you rechamber the barrel after it is turned into the receiver and set, and then you rough cut the chamber, then finish it by hand and headspace it correctly. This makes sense. And at this point, I have to apologize to the gun geek. Okay, he was right. It's just he didn't quite articulate it and no one else did. But now that I have actual measurements and lengths, diameters, and everything, we can go and check this out. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go out to the work area. I'm going to disassemble the gun. And, well, here, I'll tell you in a second here. Alright. I have a copy of this and the dimensions. Okay? We're going to go out to the garage and work area. I'm going to disassemble the gun, and we are going to measure it, and I'm going to examine it closely. Now, when I looked at it, when he was telling me that they were sleeved or pressed in, I could not see a joint where it was. Okay? So we're going to go and re-examine that once more. Okay? This diagram makes total sense out of what everybody's been saying. Okay? Now we have a reference. Where these people found this, why is this reference not in two major books that I spent money on, supposedly be in there? Now this all makes sense. Okay? And what he's talking about. But nobody had a diagram or explained, or what I like, there are measurements. So we're going to go and measure the sections and see if these things marry up. Then again, Gun Geek, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you. But you're right, they were spliced and shortened by this method. So we have our barrel here, and looking, there you see where the section has been, but we're going to take the measurements first and check them out. So the first measurement on the rear is 141. So if we line this up to 141 here, a rough guess, that's about where it should be. Okay, where the barrel ends and where this piece here ends, and we'll take a closer, better look at it. 141. Now, when you take the overall length of 451 minus the 141, you should come up with, I believe it's 310 millimeters. And when we do measure it from this splice here to the very end of the barrel there, it does come out to 310. So that explains how they did it. The Gun Geek was correct. It's very clever because you cut out a section of the barrel, turn a section, turn a section the same length, and if you clean out the bore and look down in there closely, down into the receiver, you can see the lines where that was bored out and pressed in. Okay, you can actually see it. If you clean everything out, generally them things are hard to look down into. So they press that in to this segment here. Get a close up. So they cut the barrel off, bored it out to 11.7 millimeters. That's pretty, well, I guess it's thick enough. Bored this out. Now I don't know if they soldered that maybe or something, because this thing looks kind of well rounded. And there's no gap, no line, no nothing there. So that's why it kind of led me to believe it was turned. Maybe they soldered them in place. So this section of the original barrel is intact, but just bored out. This is pressed down with a step and then rechambered. And there you go. That's how they converted them. This makes sense. Now we have a diagram how it's done. We answered the question once and for all. They were spliced in. And this is the most common and economical way to do it. And they said a vast majority of the 250,000 or something that were converted were done with this method. Well, there we have it. The big question, how did they actually do it? How did they convert these guns? Well, we had proved out that the diagram, the method, and all along people were right when they said these were spliced or something into there, which without some sort of a guide, diagram, or measurements, it's pretty hard, to describe. Well, they cut it apart and then pushed it back together. But obviously they did. I don't know if they brazed them maybe. I know some of the other ones I had a sharper angle on that joint there. But this gun shoots well. Matter of fact, now that I got it out, I might take it out once my range is open and give it a shot again. Do some shooting with it. Okay, there you go. Answered the question. I apologize for anybody that I disagreed with about this subject matter in the past, because there was a lot of discussion and other things about it. But here we go. Proved it out. That's the way it's done. Alright? Hit the like button, subscribe, and if you can see it, become a member. It's going to have a lot of reloading stuff coming up here. And also, I will leave a link to this webpage in the description box below.